Welcome ladies and gentlemen, Tactical Itch here. Today we are finally showcasing the classic grudge match between the Dwarfs and their evil cousin, the Chaos Dwarfs. Now for army build, I'm going for a full-on mechanized assault with 2 Iron Demons leading the charge, and they're backed up by 4 Chaos Dwarf blunderbusses. Who need axes when you have armor-piercing shotguns, right? And for the frontline units, we have some Goblin Laborers flanked by some Orc Laborers, providing a lot of chaff to pin down enemy units, and of course, providing flanking forces to tie down enemy units and threaten their backline. Speaking of flanking, we also have a couple Bull Center Renders with their dual axes to provide some anti-infantry mobility. Further back, we have a single magma cannon. These guys have 450 range, actually outranging the 440 range of the cannons. This means that the magma cannons can safely stay out of range of the cannons and bombard the Longbeards in the front line. Whereas my opponent here is bringing a rather classic Dowie box with a couple cannons in the center, and they will be protected by a whole lot of Dwarf Warriors as well as Longbeards in front. All of them with great weapons, probably expecting to fight my Chaos Dwarf heavy infantry in melee combat, but I won't be giving them the chance with only chaff and blunderbusses. At the back, we have some Quarrelers providing some long-range firepower, a few miners scattered around the formations here, one of them the Akron's miners for some blasting charges, and further back 2 Slayers to provide some protection against enemy mobility. In the skies, we have a single gyro bomber providing some bombardments as well as some anti-single entity firepower. And leading the army, a single rune lord with a couple rune spells, the rune of breaking to provide armor sundering and of course weapon damage buff, and also rune of negation for damage resistance. And that's it for both armies. Now let's get the battle started. As I mentioned earlier, the magma cannons do outrange the dwarf cannon, so the cannons cannot counterfire at the magma cannon, while the magma cannon's flaming shots can easily shoot into the Longbeards here. Expensive infantry being torn apart by the burning shots, the vortex effect especially ripping away at the surviving Longbeards. Now, seeing that the Dawizar has their artillery in place, the gyro bomber will be moving in hoping to shoot it down. But unfortunately, this will be the biggest mistake of the pilot's life. The short-range but deadly blunderbusses have been waiting, and they are indeed very trigger-happy. Having insane burst damage will be deleting this gyro bomber in a single volley. And there goes the Dowie Air Force. No more gyro bombers, no more bombing runs or Gatling guns. This means the magma cannon is now secured and safe, free to fire at whatever he wants. And you can see that the Longbeards are already taking substantial casualties from all those devastating firepower. At the same time, my infantry are not sitting idle either, as the Goblin Laborers are pushing forth with the Iron Demons following right behind. The Goblins and Orc Laborers are spreading wide, pressuring the flanks of the Dowie box, hoping to find openings. Chaos Dwarf infantry, the blunderbusses, are moving in as well, and they shall be unleashing their devastating firepower into the Longbeards. The great weapon variant might be good at hacking apart armored infantry, but against armor-piercing firepower, they are basically sitting ducks without their shields. They are taking substantial damage as they're distracted by the goblins. On the far side, Bull Centaurs are circling around, hoping to find an opening and get onto the cannons, because they are indeed shooting up my Iron Demons quite badly. Though the Iron Demon does have a bit of protection in the form of Hellbound, providing that physical resistance for the unit, mitigating some of that incoming armor-piercing damage. Now the goblins and the Iron Demon is breaching the front line here, as the Longbeards cannot tie down the raging war machine, and it is now among the Quarrelers disrupting their fire. At the same time, Longbeards being buffed up by Rune of Negation will be surviving for slightly longer than usual, but unfortunately they are making a mistake here. Instead of running away, they should be charging towards the blunderbusses, because right now nothing is pressuring the Chaos Dwarf gun line, and they are freely shooting at the fleeing Dowie. In the middle, the Akron's miners are bunched up with the Quarrelers, allowing me to debuff them with a single air storm, boosting the damage from my blunderbusses and the magma cannon. The reason why the dwarf formation is messed up is because my Iron Demon has busted into the backlines and they are rotating trying to focus it down, which in that regard they are quite successful in doing so. But by focusing a lot of their resources on the Iron Demons, the backlines are left open for the Bull Centaurs to charge in. They're going straight for the cannons, although my opponent did respond with some Slayers trying to fend them off, but my Bull Centaurs can simply back away and move on to the next target. The Bull Centaurs have more than enough speed to stay ahead of the Slayers, and they are now going after the second cannon. More bull centaurs coming in this way as there is no longer a dwarf front line to stop them. The quarrelers have nothing to protect them and they are left to the mercy of the bull centaurs, and let's face it, mercy isn't exactly the specialty of chaos dwarfs. Some quarrelers are trying to shoot down the bull centaurs, but then the magma cannon is still firing in and they will be silenced and destroyed. A second unit of Iron Demon is now finally activated, pushing in, trying to threaten the backline here. Especially these cannons needs to be silenced as soon as possible. They are ripping apart my bull centaurs and some of my chaos dwarf blunderbusses. I'm sending a lot of elite units just to shut them down, especially now that the slayers are dragged out of position, unable to protect artillery. Around the battlefield, there are still some scattered units of dwarf melee units trying to pressure my blunderbusses, like these miners. But unfortunately, they are also walking into a point-blank volley of shotgun fire, and yeah, they're not making it into melee contact. At this point, the dwarf army is in shambles. The slayers managed to beat back some of the bull centaurs, but then there is still a melee infantry, and will be easily shot down by all my blunderbusses. As you can see here, a single volley took away half their HP. On the far side, some orc laborers are trading pretty decently into the dwarf miners. Other than that, all that's left for the dwarf army is some quarrelers and some slayers, which none of them are good at dealing with so many healthy blunderbusses left on the field. At this point, my opponent will be throwing in the towel. For a quick rundown of army performances, the Iron Demons didn't do much here in terms of damage value. They're more like a disruption piece that are used to punch through the dwarf infantry line and get into the back line to silence the missile units. For example, the cannons and the quarrelers, also dragging away the attention of all the Dowie defenders, allowing the blunderbusses to move in and start shooting, getting some insane value and a lot of kills, especially this one on the left, being able to blast away the entire unit of gyro bomber. The magma cannon also did some significant damage against the Longbeards, very solid damage value against densely packed armored infantry. Laborers not doing much here since they are just chaff to tie down enemy units, and then the bull center renders with dual axes managed to cut down a lot of the quarrelers and silence the artillery. The Sorcerer Prophet of Hashut, mostly there for debuff and buffs, basically supporting abilities like Inferno Engineer to buff up that reloading speed of surrounding missile troops, as well as Ash Storm to boost damage of the blunderbusses. For the Dowie army, unfortunately the gyro bomber got one shot and did not manage to do much on the field, while the cannons here did some okay damage, nothing too amazing because they got shut down hard by a combination of bull centaurs and the Iron Demon. The Longbeards didn't even manage to get much melee kills here, other than some laborers, mostly shut up by magma cannons and blunderbusses. The lack of shields definitely spelled their demise here, as there's nothing to protect them from all the blunderbusses. Ekron's miners did some pretty decent damage with the blasting charges, but still not quite enough to recover their value. The Quarrelers is not exactly a good pick against the Chaos Dwarfs because the armored blunderbusses do have shields and heavy armor, mitigating most of the damage from their non-armor piercing shots. And the Dwarf warriors with great weapons and the miners all suffered heavily at the hands of armor piercing firepower. That's basically it for today's video. I hope viewers you enjoy it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more multiplayer action, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich signing out.